Yes, and because of that, if you were watching this morning, if you watched yesterday, you know we've issued weather impact alert days. We don't get tropical systems all that often. It's been a couple years, so it's something we really need to take seriously as we go into the end of the week.
For sure. And it is coming at, I want to say, a needed time because obviously there are drought conditions, but we'll get into this too. We still need to think about flooding, of course.
Yes, especially what we had strong storms Saturday, strong storms Tuesday, more wet weather, another chance for strong storms tomorrow. So let's start diving into the details here.
Yes, the nitty gritty here. Of course, the timing for the start of our weather impact alert is going to be 5 o'clock this evening. Now, I want to emphasize with this that this is not going to be where our flooding concern is going to be. This is going to be evening travel nuisance type activity here. We could get some downpours. Do I think there'll be flash flooding from that? No, we're not expecting that. It's not until tomorrow morning.
Yes, and with all of this, we are going to be watching for flooding issues. I think that is the hallmark of the problem for us as we go over the next 36 hours. So if you can do a work from home day Friday, do the work from home day.
Go for it, for sure. I mean, if you could avoid traveling, because tomorrow's morning commute, it is going to be a mess. But if you do have to be out and about, of course, make sure you have a way to receive those alerts. Whether it's for the flooding, because there could be flash flood warnings issued, just like we've seen in spots over the past week, but there could also be areas where we have to talk about severe weather, too. Yeah. So, yeah, just multifaceted, but to emphasize, it is the flooding concern more than anything else.
Yeah, and so we're already starting to see some of these rounds of rain. They're tropically enhanced, but it's not Debby per se quite yet. And you've been seeing that. It's that mist and the drizzle that just kind of hangs out in the air. Yeah, it's really gross. So we're going to continue with those rounds of showers as we look ahead and continue on.
Yes, for sure. And as those showers continue onward, we are going to be watching Debby slowly crossing through. And this is mostly, at least as of when we're recording this, which is about 10 o'clock in the morning, as we continue to watch that, this is going to be mostly through the Carolinas, racing up through the southern mid-Atlantic, ultimately crossing central PA, of course, and impacting us. Right now, it is still a tropical storm, but will weaken to a depression and then just basic tropical remnant moisture, but still is going to have those impacts, of course. Here's the latest, though, on Debby as of the 8 o'clock advisory.
Yep, 8 o'clock advisory. So as Andrea mentioned, the name doesn't really matter. Hopefully you guys can hear me a little bit better. We're swapping out some microphones here. The name doesn't matter. We're going to just call her Debby, and Debbie's going to bring us a lot of rain. But as of the 8 a.m. advisory, still tropical storm status as it has some of those stronger gusty winds. But the forecast, of course, has it weakening. As soon as tropical systems go over land, they lose their fuel source, and so we start to lose those typical characteristics. So could just be a remnant low or a tropical depression. It doesn't matter. The storm is tracking right through Pennsylvania.
Yes, and there could still be some last minute jogs, but the track of the center is going to pass directly over central PA. And as you see it up here now, anywhere in that cone is where the center could track. So if there's a little bit more of a jog west, that might help us out, but I wouldn't say we're out of the woods. A jog even so slightly to the east, though, could mean more problems for more parts of the area before all is said and done. So there's still a lot that we're watching, although I will say there's been a lot of good consistency in the last 24 hours, which is what we want to see.
Yes, and the other thing that we really like is that models are speeding up this storm. So while it was crawling, I think 3 miles per hour, we could all outrun Debby yesterday. But as it pushes inland, it interacts with the jet stream and other features. It's going to start racing to the north. So the speed is moving. Our weekend is clear. It's really just Friday, the big impact day.
For sure, but it's still going to be a good amount of rain in just a small window of time, and of course thunderstorms that might form along it will only add fuel to that, so there's still a lot. In short, it would be worse if this system was moving slower, much worse, but it's still going to cause problems for us. So let's run you through our Futurecast. Through the rest of today, there are going to be those on-off spotty showers. Again, heading towards dinner time, that's when we start to tap into some of the moisture with those outer bands. That's why we're thinking some of those downpours could start earlier, but it's not going to be until much later tonight when we start to see that heftier rain get in, Danielle.
Yeah, the morning commute tomorrow, so 5, 6, 7 a.m. as we're seeing here on Futurecast, that's the heaviest of those showers hours. The heaviest of the rain bands, and that could continue into the early afternoon before all is said and done.
Yes, and notice the bulk of those yellows, the oranges, and the reds were mostly west of Harrisburg. So you're talking areas like Mifflin, Juniata, Perry, Franklin counties, parts of Cumberland County that will be getting the constant heaviest rain. With that said, you still will get heavier pockets east, especially with any storms. But that's going to be where a lot and the most amount of our rain falls.
Yes, and let's play this forward one because I want to show you guys just how quickly our area is going to clear. So it's going to be really bad through the first half of the day, but I think we get some dramatic improvements through the evening.
Yes, for sure. Thanks to that speed that it's going to pick up over the next 12, 18 hours or so. You know, we're going to get a lot of rain in a little bit of time, but by midday, folks out west could be clearing out, but we also have to watch because as this starts to lift out, a line of storms can form along this, mostly late morning and into the early afternoon, and that's where the severe weather threat comes into play.
For sure.
Whenever we see this setup, you'll notice here we are dry finally by about dinner time, but you know, in these situations, when the storm tracks to your west, you are in that sector where you can get severe weather. It's a little extra spinny, so we can't rule out a spin-up tornado. And sometimes you don't even need an intense storm for that to happen. They just spin up, and silently is kind of the way I like to say it, even though, you know, obviously that's kind of the way I like to explain it because you might not get a nasty storm or boomer with it. It might just spin up,
quick,
as we say.
It's typically really weak.
Yes.
So typically you're not getting, really high-rated tornadoes. You just get brief spin-ups. They hit the ground. They come back up a little bit. Not to downplay it because our area doesn't get tornadoes all that often. So, even just the lowest end risk for us is something that we take really seriously. And of course, rain's going to be the first priority. Severe weather is going to be part 2. Let's talk totals because today we get a little bit, but tomorrow we get a lot.
Yeah, so you'll notice very little, and then all of a sudden, boom, the totals blow up, especially to the west. But what I want to show about this model that is taking so this morning's high resolution models did not really have a good handle on the scattered shower activity. This update of one of our models called the HRRR grabbed onto it, and we're seeing some of those heavier amounts pivot back into our area. Most of us can expect about 2 to 4 inches. Don't rule out isolated higher amounts, but unfortunately it does. If these trends hold and we start to see some more pivots at the afternoon models, that could spell problems for more spots for sure.
I don't think it's a question of if it floods, it's a question of where and at what time. So everyone should anticipate that you're going to run into issues and all those problem spots and more.
Yes. Good. I'm glad that our watches were next. Sorry. This is why I kind of wish that the flood watch was issued for our entire area instead of just the western half of our area where you're expecting the biggest rain swath, because even if there's just that slightest shift, which this very good high resolution model and has been kind of on a roll the last few weeks too, it makes me a little anxious seeing that this is the direction that it's pivoting in, and it makes me wonder if we needed an area-wide flood watch, which we don't issue, but that's why we've kind of emphasized even if you're not in the watch area, especially with storms, you could still get isolated flash flooding in, say, York, Lancaster counties where we'd rather not get it, of course, because you've had those downpours the last couple days.
So areas west of Harrisburg are under that flood watch, but what we want you to know is that if you don't live under the flood watch, you still need to act like you do. You still have that potential for some flooding, and it wouldn't shock us if that got expanded east.
Yes, especially because, just that slight pivot to the east. I mean, we're talking something so small. It's almost like we're talking a nor'easter here, where that little shift is all the difference between your mixing line and a whole bunch of nothing, and then, 6 to 12 inches of snow. This is kind of that similar scenario, just the tropical version, where just that little shift to the east means, just look at the map. Like, if we back it up real quickly, I think, there we go, and we just look at the map, all of a sudden, more spots are in that heaviest amount, and those lighter 1-2 inches that we wish would set up over our eastern counties just might not be a thing. So definitely don't let your guard down just because you're not in that flood watch. That is definitely something we want to really hammer home with this one.
Correct. Now, part 2 of this, let's talk about that threat for flooding across the area. Rivers, these are the forecasts that the Weather Service puts out. Right now, it looks like the Swatara Creek at Harper's Tavern, as well as down through Hershey, is going to experience those minor flood stages. And then the Yellow Breaches, my head is for sure in the way.
Yeah.
The Yellow Breaches, you guys are all normal levels right now, but we are expected waters to rise, and this could be peaking early Saturday. So,
yes,
of course, with rain, the impacts can be felt a little bit delayed when it comes to creeks and streams.
Yes, those smaller creeks and streams, the real tiny ones, like maybe the one behind your backyard, those rise rapidly and come down rapidly. Our bigger ones, like these locations, take a little more time because they're bigger. They've got water coming from other tributaries too, perhaps, so there's a lot that goes into it. Luckily, the Susquehanna, there'll be elevated levels, but we're not expecting any problems. Plus, we have to see what happens upstream in northeastern PA because that's where, the northern branch extends. But
right
so
now,
far,
we're looking okay on that front.
So far, so good. And then one more thing to touch upon. We kind of alluded to this at times a little bit, but our severe weather threat, Danielle.
Yeah, so of course, we keep an eye on the track of the storm because the right side, the east side, is typically where you're going to get that most spin and is where you're going to have that tornado threat. We'll also watch for damaging wind gusts. I do think the quick spin-up tornadoes are biggest issue. So you'll see here areas in York County, Lancaster County, Lebanon County, and then towards Philadelphia are under that marginal risk for severe weather. It's a level 1 out of 5. So typically we're like, that's fine. Tomorrow, not fine. Keep an eye to the sky. You want to make sure you've got our Fox 43 app downloaded because it warns you when those warnings pop up. If it is a tornado warning, your phone goes off anyways.
Yes, for sure. I turned them off, but
yes, turn them back on for Friday.
Yes, but yes, for sure. Everybody will want those on just to make sure you can get that. And flash flood warnings too could be coming in on your phone. So even if it's not a tornado warning, those downpours are going to be something that we have to watch. We're not seeing the threat for hail. This is just tropical systems. That's usually not much of an issue, if anything, just because of the warmer features that these systems typically have. Now, it's kind of interesting here. We obviously need the rain and a lot of it. And I know there are probably some folks who are wondering, how can we have a drought but be concerned about flooding on the same the same week.
Same day,
yeah, same week, same day.
Yeah, so the Drought Monitor updates, it pulls data every Tuesday morning. So this data that we have right now was pulled Tuesday morning, so before another round of heavy storms, but really no changes. Almost our entire area is at least abnormally dry. We have that swath of moderate drought where you see that tannish color. Then my head once again blocking. Southern Franklin County still looking at severe drought. And we've heard from viewers, ag implications. Our corn needs rain.
Yes,
a lot of
to
the
grow.
Products that we are growing in this area need rain.
Yes, and this will help with that for sure. But the problem is, when it comes to flooding, it's a little complicated. So if you're behind, the ground can usually handle a lot more. But everything has its limits.
Yeah.
If you get just too much rain in too little time, especially with these back-to-back downpours that a lot of areas, although they're spotty and clustered, it's just too much in too little time is still not good no matter how much you need it. And this is, kind of cumulative, these conditions over now. Oh my goodness, it's 2.5 months now at this point.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's not an overnight fix.
No.
Yes.
You can think of it like a sponge,
Yes.
The sponge is full right now, so any more that we're adding to it is going to flood. We have those banks underground that still, are taking more water in, but it takes time to fill them up.
Yes, it does. And so that's why, this will probably help break the drought in a lot of areas. If there is some good news to come out of it, it should be enough rain to do just that. But we're not getting it in either enough little bits back to back or chunks that are spaced out enough to not have these flood issues, even with the fact that we've been so dry for so long.
Yeah, so I think it'll be really interesting. You will have to check back in with us next Thursday as we get the next update to the drought monitor, because I'm really hopeful that we get some improvements.
For sure.
But it's something we'll have to watch. And just because we're in a drought, we're still talking flooding issues.
Yes.
So those weather impact alert days, that's for this evening, and it continues through most of the day on Friday. So we are going to continue, and we're going to have full coverage all day tomorrow.
Yes, we are. We will be here. We will be ready to keep you informed through our morning shows. We'll be cutting into programming if there are plenty of ongoing flash flood warnings, and if we do actually have reporters at flash flood sites. So we'll be sure to keep you up to date on what's going on through the afternoon. Of course, if there's a tornado that pops up, we'll be there and we'll be ready to tell you where that spin is happening.
Yeah, and I think another piece of good news here for you today, after all of that doom and gloom, Saturday looks gorgeous.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. So the good thing is, we mentioned you get a lot of rain, you want some time to dry out. Thank goodness we're going to get time to finally dry out after this.
Yeah.
So it looks like most of next week will be dry,
yes.
comfortably dry, and lovely weather too. A break from the humidity. As much as it's cooler today, it still doesn't feel the best because it's still pretty muggy. Yeah.
So
meh.
We'll get you through the storm. We appreciate everybody that's tuned on in. I'll be back at 4 and 5.
Yes.
Allie's in at 10. Andrea's with you all morning. So either tune on in. You can go to fox43.com/weather for updates to your forecast at any point in time, and stay safe the next 24, 36 hours.
Yes, please. I do want to emphasize really quickly, we say it all the time and it sounds so simple, like common sense, a caveman can do it. Ode to the commercials. Turn around, don't drown. You'd be surprised. I mean, we had some water rescues over the past week that happened with some of those rains. In those storms, just don't risk it. If you can't see the bottom of the ground, you don't know what's under there, assume. And it doesn't take much water, especially if you have a small sedan. It does not take much water to lift and move a vehicle. And even for a large SUV or a truck, you'd be surprised how little water it takes to lift those and move those too. And even then, even if you can drive through the water, you do not want to ruin your transmission.
No, you don't.
Then you need a new car anyway.
It's
so
not worth it.
just be smart, be safe. If you have to take another, and I know we have a lot of back roads that are just annoying to try to find your way around, but it is just better to just do that, anticipate delays, account for it, and please just be smart and be safe, everyone.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for tuning on in. We'll catch up with you soon.